Black magic. You got to know, got to show. It's time to roll. So just tell me what you want to hear. Tell me what you want. So just tell me what you want to hear.
Welcome back, everybody, to a surprise edition of RatG TV interview series edition. And ladies and gentlemen, a great show for you today. And I am stoked. We got two of the best in the business today. I'm pointing to the wrong side here on my mirror. But we've got two great composers coming straight from LA right now. We've got Reza Safinia and, of course, H. Scott Salinas. How you guys doing today?
Hello.
Good. Now, you know, the first time I interviewed you guys a couple weeks back, I nailed your names perfectly the first time. I feel like I fucked it up this time, Reza.
No, perfect.
Good. We're all good. Scott's like, I ain't saying shit. Thanks for coming back, guys. It was a great blast having you guys on the show last time. Great talking music, and we have got a ton of music fans, both on the page and as well as a lot of friends of mine and on all the other socials. Folks, if you are watching along and you have a question for either of these two fine gentlemen, please post them up here and we will get them going there. But aside from that, we're just going to kind of shoot the shit tonight, talk music, talk the business, and talk about our lives and see how everything's going. Rebecca Nishi, hello, our favorite Max Warrior geek right there. And speaking of Warrior, I guess that's how we all got to know each other, because the two of you, both the composers on Warrior. I'm going to start with you, Scott. What is that like working on Warrior for those that haven't seen the show and didn't see our last interview?
It's awesome for a couple of reasons. One, getting to, hang out with my buddy Reza and make a lot of music. But this show really features the music, and it plays it loud, and it's very aggressive and fun and pulpy, like a la Pulp Fiction-y. And so it's really great, because sometimes our job is to be, subtle and support the drama or whatever. But our job on this show is to kick ass. That's really fun. It's a really fun thing to do musically, and to get in that vibe and get that energy, and it's not often you get to do that.
And what about you, Reza? What do you what kind of stands out the most for you working on a soundtrack like Warrior with not only this cast but this crew, and you're working with Scott again here? Just give me your overall.
It's pretty much what Scott said. For me, the dream of scoring, or the dream of doing music, period, as a career, it's that you want to do new things. You don't want to repeat yourself, and you want to have the opportunity to experiment with any wild ideas that you have. And very often you don't get that opportunity, but in Warrior you do. It's amazing, and they trust us as well, and they give us a lot of freedom. And then Scott and I, we play well together. We jam together, we write together, we do stuff together, and it's fun. And so the whole process is just fun.
Awesome. And that's the one thing that I seem to hear when it goes across the board with this show. And I know my friends and my fans of the page probably get sick of hearing me talk about Warrior as much as I do, but it really is this once in a generation type show. I find it's on the same wavelength as The Wire and the Newsroom and The West Wing. Just the writing's there, but it's a show that's got the writing of those shows with the action of Oz, if you will, and Banshee mixed together. And you talked about the fun of that. How much freedom do the two of you have when it comes to how much fun the actual soundtrack and the music is?
You mean how, in terms of creatively? If anything, sometimes in the beginning of a season, Jonathan has to remind us, like, I really want you guys to go for it. Like,
Oh, wow.
yeah, like he actually makes sure that we remember that, like, he wants us to try new things and go for it and have fun. And he definitely creates an environment where, you know, we're not scared to experiment. Because I remember early on, a couple of cues were like, okay, here we go. Let's see if he really meant it. And he does. Those become some of his favorite pieces. And that's really what happens, because a lot of people will say that at the beginning of a job. But then very quickly you realize, like, whatever their idea of adventurous music is still very, like, in a box. And he's not
Right.
like that. He and also the music in the show is a mashup of styles. It has hip hop, it has Western. Like, when I say Western, I mean like the genre, the Western influence, but also Western and Eastern flavors in terms of, you know, geography and culture. So it's a great opportunity for just finding new ways to mash those things up together and see what comes out.
Now, as Scott talked a little bit there about, you know, you've got this mix of old style country, you've got, you know, hip hop, you've got everything. What is your music selection like? Like, what is on your play deck that you find kind of helped influence this soundtrack?
Well, we at the before we started doing the score, like, we talked about it between us, and, you know, we both came up with ideas of what we thought would be like good references. For me, I had a very strong feeling of, like, I was hearing White Stripes, I was hearing Jack White's guitar style, and I was hearing a little bit of Black Keys, and I was hearing a lot of Rizzo, Wu-Tang Clan, you know. And then Scott, you know, was, you know, also hearing a lot of Sergio Leone kind of stuff. And, you know, so we were like talking about how to blend those things together, you know, and that's kind of what we did.
And it's such a good blend. Now, this isn't the first time the two of you have worked together. Now, maybe if we can just go quickly over your origin story for those that missed it for the first time. How did you two first hook up together when it comes to working?
Yeah, so Reza and I had a mutual friend that I went to college with, and he hooked us up together, and Reza came over to my studio. This is maybe at least 10 years ago, maybe 12 or 13 years ago. I tend to underestimate. But Reza had already a very successful producing career, big artist, Kylie Minogue, and
Wow.
a lot of big stuff. And had actually, I don't know how recently, but it was recent for me because he played me his own record of instrumental music, but it was sounded like a record. It didn't sound like score, and I was like, holy moly! And you know, he was sort of picking my brain about the industry because I had been sort of already doing film music and commercials, and then we started working together on some commercials, and I don't know, it was like, for me, his point of view musically was so dialed in and really well crafted, but also something that just I liked taste wise.
Right.
Also, like I'll give you a great example. Like, I just remember one of the songs he played for me, and it had some drums on it, and I was like, never in 1,000 years, even if I was listening this and trying to reproduce it, could I make that drum sound. I just, it was so exactly the right thing. And I was more living and orchestral and guitar-y stuff, and like, he was bringing something to the table where I was like, wow, there's years and years of sort of mastering of a thing that have already gone into this. So it wasn't like Reza was like some intern. Not that there's anything wrong with interns, but you know what I mean? Like, he was like already accomplished in a world, and just looking to make a shift into doing that for pictures. So that was really exciting to me. And we just vibed and got along really well. I don't know if I'm telling the story exactly right.
No, for sure. And the flip side of it was like, you know, I hadn't done any film work before, but I was a big fan of films, and I was very particular of film scores, and I was very particularly a big fan of Danny Elfman, and especially Edward Scissorhands. I think Edward Scissorhands is one of my favorite pieces of music, period.
Great.
And and Scott was playing me his stuff, and you know, I was like, this is like, it sounds like Danny Elfman, but not in a way like it's a sound alike. Like he had his own sound, you know. But what I meant was like in a way of like, it's that quality and it's that level of richness and depth to it, you know. And so I was just completely blown away, and I was like, wow, man, I want to learn. I want to learn what you're doing.
Definitely a case of like, I'll show you yours and you show me whatever. Show me mine.
I was just gonna go there.
But it was definitely like, okay, there's something to learn here. And I think the way that works is you have to have two people that are comfortable with their own bag, that aren't going to feel threatened. Like it was just a good timing and where we were in our sort of careers as musicians. There was no threat there. It was just like, holy moly, we can unlock some cheat codes here if we work together.
Oh my God, did we just become best friends? The worst part is I'm not even a Will Ferrell fan, and I knew that one. We have some questions here. Luther Quinn says, Reza is from Indonesia. That's a common name there.
Actually, my parents are from Iran.
So no. Close. And Rebecca says she knows that you play instruments, Reza, but Scott, do you play any? And how do you compose?
Yeah, we both play a lot of stuff. Both of us, like our main axes are guitars, and Reza is a really, really great bass player too. Like any guitar player can play bass, but I don't consider myself a bass player, and I actually consider Reza like a real bass player. Like he can actually like throw down on the bass. Like, but yeah, and then we bang on everything in the studio. Like my laptop right now is on top of a toy piano. You know, there's instruments behind me. You know, like I mean, we're guitar players. I know Reza's been getting really, really good at piano because he just decides to get great at things and then like suddenly is. So I write, to answer the question, I compose on piano. I only write on guitar if it's going to be a guitar thing, which, by the way, in Warrior, a lot of it is guitar.
It really is.
Of course, we're going to write that on a guitar mostly. But if I'm trying to come up with a melody or chords or stuff, it's always going to be on the piano for me, because the thing about guitar is a guitar has the note middle C in 5 different places. You can play that same note. On a piano, it's just right there in the middle. It's called middle C. And so that matrix that the guitar is, for me, doesn't lend itself usually to coming up with kind of more classical or, you know, those type of epic melodies. It can, but for me, I just like to feel the piano. Like the other thing is, on the piano, if you're playing low on the piano and it's starting to sound muddy, it's going to sound muddy with the orchestra. Like the piano is a good representation, like the way things match together. If it sounds good and warm and rich, when that goes to orchestra and those same registers, even if it's trombones or horns, you can trust that that's going to have that same richness. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it does. I mean, as much as it could to a layman like myself, who's made it as far as grade 12 music class.
That's pretty good.
Well, yeah, you know, I can play a mean saxophone.
Nice.
I mean, well, you know, I basically can play Axel Foley. That's it. Axel F. And James Brown, I Got You, I Feel Good.
Oh, amazing.
Right? But it's been a while. Oh, and of course, Chua's coming in and just giving us the sly eye. What's up, Chua? We will play your song later. Trust us. That is still one of my favorite my favorite songs. It's going to make it on to Warrior Season 3. Don't worry.
That's our plan.
That's the plan. We're just not paying Chua for it.
We're just gonna steal it.
Just have him show up. Let him in one episode where he gets killed, and he'll be fine. Trust me. We've talked. So when you guys were, both of you, growing up, like, if you're into music, how did this happen? How does TV and movies happen for two guys that were looking to, you know, maybe conquer the rock world or conquer the whatever world, you know, of music? I'll let you go there, Rez.
Well, I mean, for me, it was literally starting with that. Well, I did one other thing, small thing before, but really it started with my meeting with Scott, because he had already made some inroads and he was already in that thing. And so he kind of opened the door for me to understand how the film and TV part was. My expertise, or my, I don't know, achievement in my career was in the music business, like not in the film business. And it is quite different. But even then, I guess, I don't know how people start in the film business, if they're starting from absolute like zero. But the way I started in the music business from absolute zero was I started interning in a recording studio, and I learned how to be an engineer, and then I became an engineer, and then I became a producer, and then the whole time I was an artist anyway, but like I didn't really know how to make my own music until I went through that process. And then I kind of had a parallel thing of making my own music and also like having a producer career, you know? So
now, what is that like, that producer career as well? Because it's one thing to be creating the music yourself, but when we look at the history of producers throughout music, you know, Berry Gordy, was Sam Roberts. Sam Roberts. I was his producer back in the day before Colonel Tom Parker. I mean,
Nice.
Even if we go Suge Knight, I mean, we know of some angry type producers. Because there's nothing about you at all that screams to me that you have any anger or mean bones in your body, Reza. Scott, I'm not too sure the same holds true for you. Mean that with all love.
Depends on how much whiskey.
About this much. You can't see it, but that's us. Anyways, no. But seriously though, what's that like for both of you producing and, you know, having to be responsible for the entire project?
I want to, Reza, I want to see if I can push you to, I don't know if you're allowed to talk about your work with Dre at all. Are you allowed to mention that?
I can talk about it, yeah.
Can I bounce this one back to him? Because it's just like, I mean, that's the top.
I
worked with Annie Lennox and I produced something her, so I'll talk about that. But I really want.
See, I've got that one.
I want Reza to. Reza never talks about this, but he told me a couple of great stories back in the day. Like, it was like, holy moly.
Okay, so Rez, when we talk before the show, we're doing backstory and stuff. This is stuff I got to know. I'm just telling you.
We're springing it on you.
Wow. So yeah, let us know what happened with you and Dre.
Well, I actually worked with Dre, but not when I was a music producer, but actually as a film composer. So it was quite recent. It was about 4 years ago. He was doing a TV show, and I was the composer for it. And I was working with him, and it was a really great relationship. And he was an incredible mentor, and he gave me so much like latitude and respect, and for my opinion. And it's amazing, like, you're sitting with a legend who's probably the most successful producer in the history of music.
Exactly.
And he lets me argue against him, you know, like, he's like, you know, like when we're sitting in the room together, we're like just two creative equals. Like, it's kind of like when Scott and I are working together, you know what I mean? So it's like, there's no like, oh, you're Dre and I'm me, you know? So that was really cool. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened with the show, but it's not coming out, and it hasn't come out. And the reason I don't talk about it isn't so much because I can't talk about it. It's just more because, you know, like the show didn't come out. You know.
Show or no show, you worked with Dre.
Yeah,
Now,
it's insane.
and talk about burying the lead within another story. It's like, and you say it like it's just nothing. Oh yeah, and then I just arguing with Dre.
Yeah, and you told me, Reza, I don't want to misquote you, that one day, like, he just, like, there was a piano or whatever. I don't know my exact detail, if it was a keyboard, and then he was like a ridiculous piano player.
Yeah, he was playing Chopin.
He's like, what?
Wow.
Yeah, actually, the funny thing is, because I'm actually much better at piano now, because I really, especially during the last 2 years, I really pushed myself to, practice and get much better at piano. I was really not really a pianist before. I was more like I knew my way around the piano, but I wouldn't call myself a pianist. Whereas now, I actually feel comfortable, playing piano. And it was kind of funny because I was the composer, and there was this grand piano there, and he sat at it and he started playing, and I'm like, holy shit, I can't do what he can do. I really hope he doesn't ask me to sit and play.
That's crazy.
I'm loving the story, and I'm trying not to self geek out right now, because in my head I'm listening to the story and then I'm starting to think to myself, I'm like, wow, so I've interviewed Reza, who just worked with Dr. Dre, and I interviewed Frank Buckley a few months ago, who just finished interviewing Cube. I mean, I'm like halfway through NWA right now. I'm feeling pretty impressed. My 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. I feel like I'm the new Kevin Bacon without being in the single.
I think we need a new Kevin Bacon. I think it's this time.
You think it's time?
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know if anyone could ever take over for that guy, especially after seeing him in The Invisible Man. Sorry.
Yeah, he's amazing.
I was thinking more of that shower scene, and Reza knew what I was talking about. That got weird. Shiva said that those were lies, and he loves bacon. Which
nice.
Thanks, Chua. We need the Chua-matica. Now, gentlemen, we talked a little bit about. We've talked lots about Warrior. Let's talk a little bit about what you guys got going on right now. Reza, today's a huge day for you, my man. You got a new song dropped out. It's dropped everywhere. It's on all the platforms, called Shiva. Tell us a little bit about Shiva.
Well, it's part of it's part of 2 albums. So I started doing this album at the start of the pandemic called Yin, and then I'm having an album coming out in July called Yang. And Yin is just pianos and cellos, and Yang is an electronic album. But the 2 albums, the pieces on the 2 albums have the same themes, musically and thematically. It's almost like the Yang album is like a remix of the Yin album in a way. And so Shiva is actually a remix of 3 songs that are on the Yin album, and they sort of come together in this way where it's acoustic piano, but there's also an electronic and techno beat, and it's kind of epic and dreamy, and it sort of goes through the waves. But I'm just putting out a single every month until my album comes out, which is in July, and Shiva's this one. And the other thing that was really fun about it for me was that I shot the video for it. That's a new passion.
Yeah, and we're going to take a look at that at the end of the show when we go out. This is it's very artistic. Like, I'm trying to look for the right words for this, because it's visually stunning. This music video. So I think the fans, especially if you've got an artistic eye, I think the fans will really, really dig this music video for sure.
Thank you.
Rebecca says, tell us how you became a yogi.
Well, I was always, I've been doing yoga for 20 years, but I really got deep into it actually during the pandemic. I mean, the pandemic was, for me, one of those big resets. You hear that story from a lot of people. And I'm one of those people that kind of redefined a lot of things, because basically the first week that the news came out that how bad it was going to be, I was like, there's no way that this is going to, that anything is going to go back to normal for at least a year. I was actually thinking it was going to be a lot worse than it was. I was thinking like this could be 2-3 years lockdown, you know?
Right.
And so I prepared myself for the idea that there's no more film scoring because there's no more films being made. There's no more whatever. So I was like, you know, I got to get into the other things that I'm passionate about. And one of those things was making my own music, which is how I got into recording those 2 albums. But the other thing was yoga. So I signed up for a Zoom yoga teacher training course.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got my teacher training certificate or whatever, like I'm a teacher now. And then I just decided I'm just going to start teaching just for fun. And I teach every Thursday morning, and I actually take donations and give them to LA Food Bank. I've been doing that from the start of the pandemic. Yeah. You know, I just feel like it's not for me. I'm not doing it as a career, but I just thought it's a good way of, you know, it's like when people do sponsored runs or, you know, this or that and the other. It's just something to bring awareness to something else. And I really, you know, during the last year, I've felt so, I don't know, I live in Echo Park and in LA, and the actual park, the lake, was just completely like a village of tents of homeless people, which the cops recently emptied out. And I had so much empathy for people who have gone through rough times and whatever. And I just felt like, you know, I'm not doing much, but the little that I can do, I'm just trying to do to help and enjoy taking care of myself, and also, you know, imparting something that works for me to somebody else if they enjoy it too, you know?
Yeah, and that's a fantastic thing. And I wouldn't kind of downplay that at all, saying that you're not doing a lot, because I would put money down that every single one of those people that have received food because of you are thinking that you've done a big thing. You know, what you've done is something that a lot of other people don't do. And we do see those, and it's sad because we, like, even here in Canada, we hear about the homeless population in LA, but we have it here as well. We have 10 cities in St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, some of our bigger cities as well. And it's one of those things that in today's day and age, you wonder how that's even possible. Like, why we're not at that point where we can't just kind of help everybody out, you know, help your brother out.
It's shocking, you know?
Yeah.
It's funny, like I was thinking, you know, when you're a composer or probably an actor or anything, you know, you have moments of fantasy where you're like, imagine if I, you know, do something really big and it wins them an award, and I go up on stage and I have to make a speech or whatever, you know, like everyone's had that thought, you know, even if they pretend that they haven't, you know? And when I have that thought, honestly, like, and I'm not saying it to sound magnanimous, I honestly am feeling this, you know? When I was younger, I was more feeling maybe more vain about it, or, you know, egotistical. But now I'm like, it actually just sickens me. Like every time I see the Oscars or Golden Globes or whatever, anything with a red carpet, I'm like, you fucking idiots. Like 5 miles away, there's a massive population of homeless people, and you guys are sitting here parading, and there's all these people going, oh, you're wearing Gucci and Chanel and this, that, and the other. It makes me feel sick, you know? And I'm like, if I ever get the opportunity to get nominated for anything, what I want to do is go to every famous person in that room and be like, let's just walk to Skid Row right now. You know, after this show ends, let's get some of your rich, famous friends. Let's go there, bring some awareness, and do something about this. Because it's like, I don't understand how, like, there's so much money in LA, there's so much wealth here. I just don't understand how this problem exists.
Yeah.
Like, it's really,
it's one of that weird underbelly they always talk about with Hollywood, you know, where we see, especially, and when I say we, I mean like people like myself on the outskirts, you know, everywhere from so far away, that Hollywood is that dreamland, but we even hear about, you know, the troubles that are there and that kind of seedy underbelly. And yeah, it's sad. And you wasn't it this year that they actually moved some squatters or a homeless
Yeah, that's what
camp
I'm saying. Yeah,
for the Oscars? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like that stuff. When I hear that, and then all those actors still go to that event, but then they're like, well, we're not going to go to Georgia and film because of the voting rights, which I'm completely with them on. But don't make like you actually care, because if you cared, you would have cared for the homeless people. You just said, hey, get the fuck out of the way so we can throw a red carpet down. This probably just cost me my Jimmy Fallon career. I'm just saying.
it probably cost me getting there too one day. But honestly, like I've it's unconscionable, especially now. Like the things that people have gone through and the massive wealth divide that's been created throughout this pandemic. I'm sorry, I don't mean to get all heavy, but it's something that I really, really care about a lot. And it's interesting, like you mentioned that, because so many people are, especially during Trump's time, so many people were so motivated by politics and campaigning for stuff and whatever. And I understand all of that, but like I don't understand how people find it so easy to think of macro things far away from them and just completely discard the micro things that are on their doorstep, And I'm like, let's fix our own problems before we start like poking our noses elsewhere. I think it's great to do that too, but like, LA has a crazy homeless problem. We got to fix it. That's something like I'm very committed to.
Yeah.
Now, Scott, when you look at Hollywood, how long have you been in LA and Hollywood for?
I've been here for about 16 years.
And has it changed much since you've been there? And has any of it been for the better that you've seen? And I'm sure there's a lot of positives there as well. Like,
I mean, this particular issue I'm pretty sure has gotten worse over the time that I've been here, or at least become more in my, in the areas that I'm familiar with. I'm on the west side, Venice, Santa Monica, and Venice Beach has sort of did this crazy cycle from being a place where like the Doors made music and was a pretty seedy place and kind of dangerous, and then in the 60s and 70s to becoming Silicon Beach and like essentially almost like a Rodeo Drive type place, and now it's sort of reverting back with homelessness and also just like more artistic culture. So you kind of see the life cycle of this stuff is about every 20 or 30 years, but I think that for me, the thing that has gotten really out of hand, I mean, this problem's been around for a long time, and income inequality, that's all getting worse and worse. But personally, the problem that I see is the folks who you used to think would be sort of in favor of doing something about this, like primarily the left, they're so fixated on sort of being woke and what people can and can't say, that they're alienating a lot of people, and they're not bringing in as many people for the cause. So what I see is sort of like, that's the sort of hypocrisy of, hey, we're so woke that we'll cancel you anytime if you slip and say the wrong thing, but we'll push over the homeless people for the red carpet,
Right.
That thing, I don't know if it's always been in Hollywood, but I've become acutely aware of it in the Trump and post-Trump era. It seems to just be like a real obvious problem, and it makes people, I think it turns people off who actually could participate and make a difference, and it shrinks the tent instead of expanding it.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a couple really good points there, and it's almost as if, and I don't know if I'm using the right phrase for this, but I'm going to use the analogy anyways. But it's almost as if with a lot of the cancel culture or accountability culture, that they're throwing out the baby with the bathwater. A lot of times they're so worried about everybody hearing them saying, I've made my stance. Listen, see, I'm on the right side. And I'm not even saying they're on the wrong side, because I agree with a lot of the stuff they say.
Of course.
It's just how about they go about it, and them forgetting, hey, yeah, we threw out all the dirty bath water, but where's Johnny? Where's baby Johnny? Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, really, it's, if you think about it, it's a form of extremism. It's
Yes.
a form of radicalization. And when it's happening with folks who you maybe agree with 85-90% of their positions, it's easy to have a blind eye towards it, but it's still, it is what it is. People are becoming radical, and it's a very small amount of people that have a very loud voice because of social media and things like Twitter. It's actually blown out of proportion. In fact, I can't even name you one person that I personally know that I would consider really to be a drive, you know, to be that type of person. Like, whenever I'm around people, they kind of say common sense stuff, and they may be a little off color joke here, but they really care about things that are important, like homelessness. You know, like most people I meet are just common sense. You know, of course, this is a more left city.
I was gonna say, yeah,
but
I live in a pretty right wing.
It is what it is, but you'd be surprised. It's pushing some people that are like more just nuts and bolts, common sense people, you know, maybe away, when it's really, that's not a good thing either.
I don't know if you guys watched the show or not. I've watched for years, decades, I guess now. But the Bill Maher show, and Bill Maher, I find, has gone farther and farther right each and every week. And I'm not even saying he's wrong with any of the stuff he's saying, but he is starting to sound more and more like Clint Eastwood every week. I'm expecting him to start screaming at an empty chair one week.
I feel like Bill Maher is moving that way, but I actually think it's relative. Like,
exactly.
You know, when you're in the, have you ever been in a parking lot and your car is stopped, and then you're like, oh no, my car is moving, and you slam on the brakes, but it's not your car moving, it's the car next to you that's moving. But you got confused. Like, Bill Maher is sort of in a parked car. He hasn't actually changed that much, but the world around him is creating the context where he's seen, you know, and he's also a sensationalist, right? You know, he wants to stir things up, and so part of his job is to rile up folks. But I do think he's moving a little bit, but actually it's relative. I mean,
you're right.
He's sort of a kind of a North Star. He's a common sense guy who likes to rile people up. Sometimes he says stuff that's nonsense, but he's entertaining, you know?
Yeah. I still watch him every week.
I watch him too, but I actually think that he's also got old.
Right.
Sure.
And you go more conservative the older you get, usually.
Well, it's not so much about conservatism. It's more like, I don't know if anyone's ever had grandparents where you're trying to. Yeah. I don't know, like, you know, when old people are trying to use FaceTime and they don't know what buttons.
He's out of touch.
It's out of touch. It's a thing of being out of touch. Yeah. Like, intellectually, he understands what's going on and the woke thing and whatever, but he's not actually. He doesn't feel it on a street level, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's. I think that's the best way to put it, especially with him. And I do. I still love watching the show every week, and he does seem to go more right each week, but. It's like you said, I think it's just he's getting older, and he's what he is in touch with isn't what was it, the old Simpsons thing when Grandpa Simpson's like, what was cool for me isn't cool now, and it happened to me, it's gonna happen to you too. It's gonna happen to us all. I've always said that every generation always complains about the preceding or the generation that follows them. They're always like, oh, they're lazy. Oh, I had to walk a mile to school, you know, or, you know, we'll always think the generation that follows us is softer than we are. It seems to be, but I don't know, man.
That's kind of why it's odd that we keep putting in like
old guys,
almost 80-year-old white guys in there. It's just like Lordy, is that really? Like,
who are the two youngest?
I mean, I'm just saying, like, who really wants, you know, those people running things? Like, in general, like, you can look at all other businesses, CEOs. Like, they're not 80-year-old white guys. Like, they
You
might
see
be
our guy?
people, but they're 35, 40, 40. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, where else do we go? Like, yes, let's put these people that are senile in charge of everything and the nukes and, you know, like that's crazy.
Yeah. Oh my God. I don't even want to get started on the whole Trump thing because
Yeah, that's wild.
By the way, just on a total side note, right?
Yeah, sorry.
I don't know if you ever, enjoy a conspiracy theory or two, but the best one I've ever heard, is about Justin Trudeau. Have you heard about the
Castro?
Oh my God, this is the best.
Wait, is it that he's a time? Is it the time traveler one that he's actually?
No, that he's Fidel Castro's son.
Oh, nice.
They put the picture side by side of him, of the two, and they're like, see the dark hair? And I get it. They have similar features, but so does Pierre Trudeau and Fidel Castro if you put them side by side.
I think Ted Cruz looks like Fidel Castro.
Oh, my God.
When he goes down to the border and wears these green fatigues and grows his beard out, he actually looks like a communist.
Now, there's a Canadian we didn't mind losing to you guys. We were okay with you guys taking Ted Cruz. We're like, yeah, you know what? The fact that you have to take them, we'll even throw in Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
But wait,
always forget that he's Canadian.
Really? Wow.
He's hiding it. The way you hide being Canadian is you go to Texas and pretend to be Texan. That's the farthest away you can get from being Canadian.
Right. Well, I do hear a lot of Canadians. We move to two places if we go to the States: Florida or Texas.
Really? Interesting.
Florida is where we go to retire. Texas is where we go to escape taxes.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's what I've been told. I really don't know. I'm speaking of what I've heard, not what I know. So take that with a grain of salt. I try not to do that too often, although I do talk a lot. I love a good conspiracy. Honestly, one of my most popular and most downloaded podcasts that I did, I interviewed a flat earther. And he's a friend of mine who is like, I mean, dead set on it. He absolutely believes it. And it wasn't a podcast. It was an argument for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. But yeah, I like getting into conspiracy stuff, but I'm a facts guy. Show me some facts and then we can form a hypothesis on those.
The best conspiracy theory right now, and the conspiracy theory with the best merch, is called birds. Let's go. Birds aren't real. Are you guys familiar with this?
No.
Conspiracy theory that somewhere in the 50s or the 60s, I don't know when it happened, but they killed all the birds, and now all the birds are robot surveillance drones. And these guys have a website with merch.
I found it.
And they're very cool. The merch is incredible. Like, it's very cool. Like, they have a hat that's green with a rainbow that says BAR. BAR is their acronym. Birds aren't real.
I'm pulling it up right now for everybody.
No one knows if it's a spoof or not. It's unclear if it's them. But I got to say, like, I'm a big supporter of that one. I just think it's very, very cool. A friend of mine started buying their How cool is that? A friend of mine started buying their merch, and he swears, like, we were playing golf together, and he had the birds aren't real hat on. I swear this is a true story. We're on a golf course. We get to the 5th hole. On the sign of the 5th hole, there's a parakeet, like a house bird. You know what I mean? Like, bright blue parakeet just sitting there. It's so, like, tame that we're able to get it into our golf cart, and the parakeet is now in our golf cart for like 12 holes before it just finally decides to fly away, on the same day that my friend decided to like wear all his birds.
So do you think that was like a bird drone?
He's starting to get convinced, because like he also said he has this tree in his backyard and he went to cut it down, but there's a mockingbird's nest in there. Like,
so
that's my favorite one right now.
So they say this started in the 50s, right?
I think so, yeah. At some point,
and they're saying that we had the technology to put little cameras and make robotic animatronic bird. I love conspiracy theories.
Don't ask, like, what about chicken. Like, don't ask about the food. Like, what about the birds we eat all the time? I don't know what their answer is to that, but that's my favorite. I think it's very stylish, and I'm into that one.
I like
Rebecca wants to know: do you have a on sign? Is the on sign on behind you on the door?
That's the exit sign.
Oh, the exit. Yeah.
That's much cooler, though. I keep wanting to get one of those.
One of those on air.
Yeah, that's so cool. All the studios.
I tried to steal one from my school when I graduated. It didn't happen.
I just lock my door, and people know, like, okay, don't go in there. He's probably recording or what.
Well, I guess you guys you've been doing it for long enough. So we're kind of all over the place right now, and I'm all right with that as long as you guys are all right with that.
Yeah, it's great.
I feel like I'm maximizing your time here. I do want to kind of get back into the music, but I want to talk a little bit about what we were talking about before the show started. Now, I had something really strange happen to me today. It's never happened before because I'm not famous enough for this to happen. But somebody's impersonating my Ryan's All Things Geek page on Facebook, but they're claiming they're an actual person, and they're offering people prizes. So if you see it, if you get a friend request, do not accept it. I would never ask you for your credit card information or ask you for a website.
I would.
So you would know it would really be Scott, but yeah, and. If anyone would have done any digging, they would have first noticed that Ryan's All Things Geek was spelt wrong. And 2, this was the cover photo.
That's so sweet.
That's me in the middle. I don't even know what army that is, where that's from. That is not me. But that got us talking. We're talking about that and how strange that is. Rez, you had something kind of similar happen to you?
Not exactly similar, but someone went in and changed a credit of mine on IMDb and put their own name instead on something obscure.
Yeah, and it was an obscure title. Like, it wasn't anything even big.
You gotta start small and work your way up.
Exactly.
You need to check the rest of IMDb.
Yeah, they're paying their dues of identity theft.
It's like the internship version of identity theft. Yes. Oh God, I can see this. This is identity theft. The prequel. I'm sorry. I'm the one person in the world that keeps giving Melissa McCartney work. I love her, and I will not apologize.
She's great.
I will not apologize.
She's a producer on a job I'm on right now. She's awesome.
Oh, well. Yeah, you have to say that. I don't. No, I'm just kidding.
You're right. You'll never know what I really think of her. I work with her.
No, I am one of those people though. I think she's absolutely brilliant. I think she's really cool. She's so funny. Now, Scott, you had a similar story or a kind of identity theft story as well.
I mean, I know it's not a competition, but I think I do have you guys trumped on this one.
I think so.
I have someone that's selling an album, and by all means, I recommend it highly. It's not. It's called Divine Melody, and the cover art is a picture of me, but I've been photoshopped into another look. This is not my usual look. I seem very happy.
You do. You seem.
Scott, I have a theory.
I'm doing this?
Yes.
I like it. I wish I thought of it.
Brilliant marketing idea.
What are those crypto things called?
Cryptocurrency?
No, the
NTFs?
That shall be my first NTF. But anyway, I don't know what it sounds like. I haven't downloaded it. I have made a decision not to go after them because I just think it's just really fantastic and great. And
how could you not love this? I mean,
I just think it's it makes me happy every time I look at it. So I let that one go. I just let it go. But it's a thing you can buy. I can't recommend it or not recommend it. I've never bought it. I don't know what's on there. It could be just like, it could be the last living bird in a cage just singing.
Yeah, but if that's the case, there's one thing we do know about that.
That's such a good logo.
I'm just saying. Oh my God, that's It's too awesome. So, Scott, you got some stuff coming up. Rez, we were talking about, of course, Shiva. That's already out on all the platforms right now. We're going to take a look at it in a little bit. But Scott, what do you have coming up? You got something kind of interesting coming up.
In the vein of Melissa McCarthy, she's actually a producer on this documentary that I'm doing on Bob Ross, the painter. Yes, that guy.
That guy.
With the awesome hair and awesome voice. And it's a Netflix documentary about his life. And as I was mentioned earlier, it gets pretty dark. There's some good underbelly in that one. It's not all fun and games. His sort of big saying was happy accidents. Mm-hmm. There's definitely some unhappy accidents in there too. But it's super interesting. The music is really fun. I got to do some wacky stuff. I feel like this is getting a little into the woods or whatever the expression is. It's not
weeds.
I can't think of getting in the weeds.
Yeah. Getting in the woods is a totally different thing. Yeah. But like I feel like you don't hear a lot of woodwinds in film music. You do occasionally, but it's sort of just big strings and drums, you know. And I got to have a lot of fun, wacky woodwinds and weird sounds, and this is definitely one where I was like going around, looking around the room, what things I could play and bang on. So it's neat.
Well, if you're ever looking for, you know, an alto sax player for your next performance that only knows how to play Axel F, and I got you, I feel good.
We'll just rearrange the notes.
Whoa, listen, let's not complicate things. Last time I played saxophone was in grade 12, so
a couple weeks ago.
I like you. Man. I knew I liked you. Look at that, just like that. He could be an actor as well.
Yeah, this is an act.
He is an actor.
This is all a performance. It's a
well, there you go. Let me ask you this now: if either of you hadn't got into music, what would you have gotten into? Like, what's your next passion?
I would probably not have been a yogi.
You would have been a whiskey drinker.
I might take your class, Rez.
Awesome.
I really need it. And you're someone I actually like being around. I don't like being around most people that teach yoga. No offense. But it's just the truth. I think I would have been a lawyer.
Oh,
sadly. Wow. And I'm so glad I'm not. But I think that's what I would have done.
Prosecutor or defense?
No, just like whatever is the richest possible. Yeah, like just like money grubbing, super, you know,
corporate.
Yeah, corporate
lawyer.
Nasty motherfucker. That's what I think I would have been.
What about you, Rez?
I'd be a vet.
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
Now, do you have any pets?
I do. I have a cat, and I had another one that died in January. But
sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
Maybe you wouldn't have been such a great vet then. Too soon. Sorry, that was the lawyer in me coming out. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
Amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
This is where I wish I had a producer just so he could have done the mic drop right there and just
not cool,
show folks. Cool.
No, you get a pass on that just because it was so witty and perfect timing. It was awesome.
I have 2 dogs. I'm an animal lover too. I swear.
He has 2 dogs, which means he's not a cat lover.
I love dogs too. I mean, I don't think there's a huge amount of difference between dogs and cats.
The big difference between dogs and cats, not one difference, not the big difference, is cats are very self-sufficient, just in terms of the amount of, like, they love and they love company. And I don't mean to be like the whole aloof thing, but like they can handle themselves for the most part. The doggies, I have 2 sisters that I rescued when they were 12 weeks. So luckily they're like best friends. So they have each other. But like, if you've ever had just like one dog, you really got to take them everywhere if you can. Cause when they're like alone, it's not the same as a cat being like alone.
Dogs destroy everything.
And also they're just not happy, you know, like very rarely when they get older, maybe. But so I feel like, you know, my PSA is if you're going to have a dog because you want to be with your dog all the time or get 2 sisters.
Yeah.
Not brothers.
I like it. I like it. Those are some great answers, and I could see you being a vet as well. I could kind of see that aura about you. Now, I want to kind of get into both before we finish up here. Can we get into Rez? What was your upbringing like?
And like from what
Like,
perspective?
like what was your family upbringing? Because you seem very rounded and very, all about taking care of people and worrying about, making sure everyone's not as I knock off my camera there, and not necessarily making sure everyone's happy, but making sure that everyone's treated fairly and everyone's treated with love and kindness. Is that something that came from your family upbringing? Is that something that came out later in life?
Yeah, I mean, there may be some genetics in that, maybe, I don't know. But my parents are Iranian, and we moved from Iran to the UK when I was almost 5 years old. And my parents were very young; they were in their mid-20s, and it was a very traumatic time for them. And at the time, I was an only child. My brother came when I was like 9, and basically, you know, my parents, they had their own things going on. So I had to like occupy myself a lot. So I learned to become quite emotionally self-sufficient. And then because I was self-sufficient within myself, then I was able to, look after other people. And I do remember like at school, not that I was like the cool kid or anything at all, far from it, in fact, but when I would see people who were even more geeky than me and they would be bullied or picked on, I was always like trying to help them and, defend their rights or whatever, So, but I think there might be a genetic aspect in it because my grandparents, I had two incredible women in my life, my two grandmothers. One of them was a member of parliament, and I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think she was the first female member of parliament in Iran.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and then my other grandmother was someone who was always doing charitable work, and she was a very, very kind-hearted person who was always looking out for everybody. And that's just what I grew up with, and I observed, and like it was just normal, that's what you do. I don't know.
Nice. What about you, Scott? What was your upbringing like? What was your family like?
The first 8 years of my life were pretty wild. I had two older sisters. My parents didn't really like each other. They divorced when I was 4 or 5. My father's Colombian. My mom is American. I lived in Colombia during that time. I lived in Texas, California, Miami. I lived all over the place. And then around 8 or 9, I moved with my older sisters to the Virgin Islands in the Caribbean to live with my mom, who had wound up just trying to get as far away from my father as possible.
Wow.
And I thought I was just going to visit for a summer, but it was known to everyone else that she was going to take over. And so from 8 to 18, when I went to college, I grew up in the Caribbean, and that's really my formative years.
Wow.
Tumultuous years before that, I'm sure they're, an expensive therapist could explain how those affected me. But in terms of like, my bedrock of growing up, it was in the Caribbean. And then at 17, I went to college, and I went to Princeton University after living in the Caribbean.
Wow. So you live in the Caribbean and then you go to Jersey?
It was wild. I mean, I was walking around wearing like a down jacket that looked like a hunter would wear. Like it was not fashionable at all, like a giant, and then like shorts and flip-flops in the dead of winter.
That's
like,
awesome.
And then everyone else looked like straight out of J. Crew or something. Like I was very confused, but I mean, I had a great time. I wound up hanging out with a lot of other island people from like Hawaii and just different cultures. I kind of like identified more with those folks. But then again, one of my really good friends, like we'd walk by the building that was named after his grandfather every day. So, it was I went back, I graduated, and then I moved on, and then I never went back until 20 years after my graduation. And that's about when I actually figured out what the heck was going on there socially and the structure and the money.
Right.
I was really pretty oblivious to it. I chose it. I kind of did a little tour of East Coast schools, and I was like, wow, this looks like right out of the movies. I just like the way it looked. You know what I mean? So,
I love the fact how you guys just gloss over all these like important details and like they're nothing. It was like, yeah, so I kind of like Princeton. It was like a party school, so I figured I'd pick there. Everybody else busts their ass to try to get into this Ivy League school.
I got lucky. I mean, I still think they maybe swapped my application to someone else's or something. Like,
Is your mother Lori Laughlin?
Yeah, exactly. Something doesn't add up, but I'll take it.
Yeah, in case you haven't figured it out yet, Scott is very smart.
Yeah, I was kind of figuring that out. I seem to notice that though with musicians who play multiple instruments though, that do a lot of like the type of that can be composers that can, you know, gravitate from instrument to instrument and actually know I'm not just know how to play, but understand how to play. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know, because I feel there's a difference, you know, like anybody can throw a ball, but, you know, to know how to throw a ball properly to somebody in the right spot, you know, a receiver just out of reach of the defender. I'm speaking stupidity if people don't know sports, but that's just how I kind of interpret it.
I think the music part is the easy part. I think the hard part is like the business end and the politics. And because it's a collaborative, you know, at least Reza's putting out albums that may not be as collaborative. Just he's doing what's straight from his soul without having to like, hey, is this okay? You know, ask a director if they approve. But like when we're talking about film music or like those types of collaboration, I think navigating that political territory and egos and trying to balance, like we're trying to tell a story at the end of the day, and it's not about like what I felt like doing musically that day per se. I mean, that's actually what it winds up being, but I have to be able to sell that somehow, you know? So that part of the job, I think, is where the experience and know-how and brains really have to kick in. And I think the music part, it's almost like you're trying to protect this innocence that whenever you got into music, when you're a teenager or whatever, a child, like whatever that thing that got you so excited, that gets everyone who isn't in music excited when they hear a song, that thing, it's like you have to build a protective armor around that thing so it just doesn't get destroyed once that thing becomes your job. You have to protect that innocence and find a way to get immediately after having some email that's super annoying, get back in, peel back that protection and get back to that place you were when you were innocent and when you were first excited about music. And that ability to like protect that, understand that that thing is sacred and don't let people mess with that, and then navigate the collaboration. I think that's the big challenge, and that's where you really gotta use a lot of brain power.
That's where all the gray matter comes in.
I think so.
Nice. I like it. I think there's been a lot of gray matter used in this interview here. We've done a lot of in-depth thinking. We've also done some guy type thinking as well, where where it wasn't quite as intellectual, but that's what makes this fun, and it's always a blast. Before we do go, Scott, is there anything you want to promote? Of course, you got the Bob Ross documentary coming in August. Where can people find you, and what else can they look for?
Yeah, I have a website. I'm on Twitter. The only thing I'm on is Twitter, which is the worst one out of all of them. Like it's so dumb that I stayed on that one. I killed everything maybe, I think like 4 years ago now. But, and I'm not really active. People like message me and I don't check it for months and then they get mad at me. So I'm pretty bad at that, but I have a website and, I'm out there and yeah, the Bob Ross thing is a thing I'm kind of excited about that's coming. And then recently it just came out. I'm still pretty jazzed on it. Was that Sasquatch doc?
Oh, right.
If you're like into
Sasquatch,
it's like a Bigfoot murder mystery mashup, and I'm really proud of the music. It's very, very strange music. So that was a lot of fun.
Oh my God! So, folks, make sure you look out for Sasquatch for sure.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You're talking about how excited you were for something. I thought you were going back to the Annie Lennox thing, but
Oh yeah, well that's in the past, but we got to work together a couple years ago, and yeah, we're still good homies. We talk a lot.
oh, that's awesome. Please tell me she hates Marilyn Manson.
You know what? I have no idea.
That
We
would
never talked about it.
legit be for the first question out of my mouth to her.
I
Off
will
camera,
tell
of
you
course.
that I will tell you A, that she would answer honestly, and B, she's got things she likes and
Love
things that
it.
she doesn't like. Yes, nice. I mean,
7-inch.
that is so cool.
7-inch. Oh wow.
I
Yeah.
put it in the
So-
80s.
That is so cool. Yeah, she's the greatest. I
Yeah,
mean,
man.
she's to me like a kind of like a Dr. Dre type
Yeah.
larger than life. But then you meet them and they're super, like you said, like treat you like an equal creatively. There was no nonsense, and there's a lot of nonsense in this business. So
I'm sure there is. That will be for our third interview. The next time we do an interview, it's all going to be, back room talk and conspiracies.
Expose.
I love it. I just want to do a big conspiracy expo with both of you.
I love
Now,
them.
Rez, what about you, brother? Now we know, of course, Shiva is out. Where can people find that? Where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm active on Instagram mostly. I mean, this music's everywhere, but I focus on Spotify and Bandcamp is where I put my attention. So those are my things: Instagram, Bandcamp, and Spotify. But it is available everywhere. And and if people do pick it up or like it and get into it, then reach out to me on Instagram, because one of the reasons I make this music is because this music is really from my soul, and I didn't do it professionally, even though I've done it in a professional manner, but mostly I've done it because I just had something to express, and I felt like there's certain things where words don't do the feeling justice. And especially around the pandemic and everything that was going on in the beginning and transitioning kind of to the next phase of it and everything, I had a lot of thoughts about energy, about connectivity with other people, about how we're all connected, about what it means to be alive and what it means to be in a community with others, and that kind of thing. And so this music is really my way of expressing that, and I love to hear if it rings a bell with anybody else ever, So if it does ring a bell for anyone, ring my bell, hit me up, let me know what you think.
Well, definitely when you see this video, as everyone's about to see, you can definitely see what you're talking about there with just with the colors alone. It feels like it's hitting on different emotions. Almost, I got this feeling almost of, I'm trying to think of the proper way of saying, not multiple lives or anything like that, but almost just different realities is what I'm seeing when I was watching your video, and just seeing those different, like you mentioned, the tone. And I kind of feel like that was like an important point, in that tone that they use in meditation. And I kind of found that a lot in this video. And I don't know if I'm stretching or reaching here, but that's just what I saw.
Totally, I love that. Yeah, I mean, that's where it comes from, Like I initially, when I did these 2 albums, I thought of them as a meditation accompaniment, except one is a different type of meditation to the other. So the Yin album is like meditation the way people think of meditation: solitary, silent, getting into that zone. And the Yang album, which this song Shiva is from, is a completely different type of meditation. This is like the meditation when you're in a festival, you're a Burning Man, or you're like somewhere, and you're surrounded by
I'm sorry.
Mushrooms.
You're surrounded by the energy of thousands of people dancing around you, and you're just connecting with that energy. And that's the spirit of these releases that I have coming between now and the summer. So, but essentially all of it is really about connecting with yourself inside, and then from there connecting with other people,
Well, I got to tell you, I am absolutely thrilled that you guys both chose to connect back with me again.
Great.
We have some great conversations. I have a lot of fun talking with you guys, honestly.
It's a blast.
Yeah, it's a huge blast. I want to thank you both, two of the best composers out there right now. And of course, I'm not being biased just because they happen to be the composers on my favorite show, Warrior. Go check it out, season 3 coming.
Yes.
But I do want to thank H. Scott's Salinas, thank you so much. And Reza Safinia, thank you both for being on the RatG TV show. And we are going to go out with Shiva live
Yeah.
here on RatG TV.